For over a century, every major financial crisis has ignited the exact same conversation. It's a discussion most people never get to hear because it only happens inside central banks, at institutional meetings, and in the boardrooms of the world's biggest hedge funds. And it always centers on one question. What happens if the system becomes too unstable to fix with interest rates, money printing, or bailouts? When that question gets asked, another idea always rises from the shadows. The idea of a full gold revaluation. I'm not talking about a small price increase or a slow, gradual rise. I mean an official overnight reset of gold's value by governments or monetary authorities. It sounds dramatic, maybe even unrealistic. But it has already happened before, more than once, and every time it did, it changed the global financial landscape in ways we still feel today. Let's go back to the early 1930s. The world was drowning in debt. Banks were collapsing, currencies were losing trust, and the public had zero confidence in the financial system. So a radical decision was made? Gold would be revalued from $20.67 an ounce to $35. Overnight, the value of gold jumped by 69%. And just like that, the government increased the value of its reserves, strengthened its balance sheet, and reduced the real weight of debt across the entire system. Most people didn't even understand what happened until years later. They just felt the consequences. Now fast forward to today. Global debt has exploded to levels that past generations would find unbelievable. Every nation is borrowing. Every central bank is juggling interest rates and stimulus packages. And behind the scenes, financial analysts, economists, and historians are watching patterns that look eerily familiar. Rising debt, weakening currencies, slowing growth, and a world that seems increasingly addicted to money creation. This is exactly the environment where the gold revaluation theory reemerges. Not as a conspiracy, not as a rumor, but as one of the only mathematical solutions left on the table. Here is the part most people do and know. The idea of gold reaching $10,000 or even $20,000 an ounce doesn't come from random speculation. It comes from formulas used by central banks and monetary historians. Think about it. If gold were ever used again to stabilize a currency or back even a small percentage of the global money supply. But here's what's even more interesting. While the public debates whether gold is old-fashioned or outdated, the largest institutions in the world are buying more of it than they have in decades. Central banks have quietly become the biggest buyers of gold since the 1960s. Major hedge funds are increasing their long-term positions. Sovereign wealth funds are reallocating billions into gold as a form of insurance. They aren't predicting anything specific, but they are preparing for possibilities the average person doesn't even know exist. Whenever financial uncertainty rises, gold becomes the one asset that cannot be printed, cannot be devalued by a government decree, and cannot be artificially created out of thin air. That alone gives it a unique power during times of crisis. And the idea of revaluing it, of raising its price dramatically, gives governments a tool they've used many times before, a way to shrink debt in real terms without officially defaulting on it. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that gold is no longer $2,000 an ounce, but $10,000 or even more. Savings would shift instantly. Markets would panic, then reprice everything. Debt loads that seemed impossible to pay off would suddenly look dramatically smaller. The world would enter a new monetary era overnight. And the people holding gold, even a small amount, would witness one of the greatest wealth transfers in modern history? Of course, no one can say for sure whether such a revaluation will ever happen again. But history teaches us something powerful. Every time the financial system becomes overleveraged, overstretched, and overwhelmed, the most unlikely solutions suddenly become the only solutions left. That's why top economists and financial thinkers keep returning to the gold question. Because it's not about prediction. It's about preparedness. And here's the real secret. A gold revaluation isn't really about gold at all. It's about trust. Trust in money. Trust in debt. Trust in governments. And trust in the entire financial system. When that trust gets shaken, the world always reaches for something solid. Something real. Something that can't be manipulated by a keyboard. So, will gold ever be officially revalued again? Nobody knows for certain. But the world is moving into a moment where extreme solutions are becoming more common. And history has a strange way of repeating itself, especially when the numbers begin to break. Maybe the real question isn't whether gold could hit $20,000. Maybe the real question is, what signals will we see in the months or years leading up to it, and will we be able to recognize them in time? Because the people who benefit the most from these massive shifts are never the ones who react late. They're the ones who understand the pattern early, even when the rest of the world doesn't see it coming yet. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, be sure to subscribe for more.